Okay, good evening, everyone attending both in the council chambers here and on Zoom. I want to welcome you to this meeting of the Hayward City Council and call the meeting to order. I have my gavel again. And I just wanted to note that this meeting is being webcast on Comcast TV Channel 15 and live streamed on the city's YouTube channel and on the city's website. And I want to say that 2 weeks ago, at the first meeting that we tried to come back into chambers and do what we're now calling a hybrid meeting, with allowing people to attend by Zoom and here in the chambers, we had some glitches. We hope we have fixed them. If not, we have a plan that we will enact to get everybody on Zoom, actually, so that everybody can hear everybody else. But we're going to try it first without doing that, and I think the city manager will talk about that a little more later. So with that, as I've called the meeting to order, I'm going to ask Councilmember Wahab, who is one of the council members attending on Zoom, which hopefully, we can see. We can't see up there, but if you're on Zoom, you can see her. Anyway, Councilmember Wahab, will you lead us in the pledge?
Definitely. Thank you, Mayor. Let's begin. All rise. The actual flag is behind our city clerk. So let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Good evening. Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Present.
Councilmember Marquez.
Present.
Councilmember Salinas.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Wahab.
Here.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Here.
Mayor Halliday.
Here.
Thank you.
And now we will have our closed session announcement from our city attorney, Mr. Lawson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Council convened in closed session this evening at 5:30 p.m. pursuant to posted notice. And with all members present, the Council discussed two matters. A, the Council discussed property transactions at the locations described on the posted notice, and the Council took no reportable action. B, the Council discussed labor negotiations involving all bargaining groups as described in the posted notice. The Council took no reportable action. The closed session adjourned at 6:45 p.m. Mayor, that's...
Thank you. That now brings us to our public comment part of our meeting, and city council members and members of the public participating by Zoom who wish to speak should use the raise hand feature, and we'll call upon you. Members participating via teleconferencing wishing to speak should dial *9, and they will be called by the last four digits of their phone number. And in-person participants who wish to speak hopefully have scanned the QR code located at the back of the room and completed the online speaker card, and we will call you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open public comments. And the first speaker here in the chambers with us is Suzanne Phyllis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Suzanne Phyllis, and I'm the SEIU Clerical Chapter President.
And my name is Doris Tang, HAME President. Together we represent the members of SEIU and HAME. As you are aware, for the first time, the members of IFPTE, HAME, and SEIU joined in coalition, marking a historic moment in the city. Together, we represent over 500 employees across all Hayward city departments, and we're urging you to support a fair and equitable contract for city staff at all levels. Your decision to support Hayward workers in this moment will speak volumes in the years ahead. It will help the city retain the talented and dedicated staff who serve the Hayward community, and will attract new talent by demonstrating that the city of Hayward recognizes, values, and appropriately compensates its staff. Over the past few weeks, members of the coalition have spoken up, providing an account of the essential duties and services that they regularly perform, highlighting the impacts of vacancies and below market rate compensation, and sharing their personal stories. We've met with you individually, and we've commented at past city council meetings. Yet still, we have not seen the movement that demonstrates that council has heard us.
We are asking City Council to acknowledge that you have heard what our members have said and that you'll remain committed to valuing the heart of the organization, the employees. We are not asking for cost of living increases to be greedy or to be difficult. We have dedicated our lives to public service, and to be able to continue to do this, we need your support. You can support us by directing city negotiators to bargain in good faith, to estimate costs fairly and accurately, to provide cost of living adjustments that come closer to keeping up with inflation, and to bring Hayward workers up to mid-market. Help us make Hayward a place where we can all live, work, play, and thrive. It has been a long road, but the members of the coalition remain committed to seeing this through. SEIU and HAME are eager to reach fair and equitable contracts, and with your support, we can get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, and I failed to mention that it was that Doris Tang, you were our second speaker, but I didn't know you were coming up together, but anyway, thank you, both. Now, there don't appear to be any other speakers here, but let's see if I can find some here. Okay, yes, we do. And the first one would be Iris, who will be speaking to us from Zoom, I believe. Iris?
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm using another person's computer. My name is actually not Iris. My name is Alima Ahmad, and I'm currently an employee of the city of Hayward. I work in the building department. I've been an employee of the city of Hayward for 18 years, and I'm here to speak to you regarding the recent COVID-19 vaccine and testing policy that was distributed for the city employees. We did have a meeting this morning with a Zoom call with Kelly this morning to talk about our concerns and to discuss the policy. And I wanted to come here tonight to express to the council my feelings about the policy. Again, I've been an employee of the city of Hayward for 18 years. I don't believe this policy is fair for people who are choosing to not be vaccinated. We're being treated pretty differently. I'm not sure if the council was required to read, to go over what this policy is, but in one of the things it requires is for employees to be tested twice a week and to wear an N95 mask. I don't think that's fair. So in general, I am asking the council to encourage leadership to reconsider how this policy was written, to write it in a more fair and equitable manner. There are unions there talking about the current negotiations. Unfortunately, this policy was something that was not included in those negotiations fairly. And so I, again, as an employee of the city of Hayward, who has been a major contributor in the organization, who has taken a lot of pride in my job, I'm asking you guys to reconsider how this policy was written and to truly show that the city of Hayward does care about its employees, that they want to see them treated fairly. I'm that same employee who came in throughout this whole COVID closure, who made sure I came in every day to make sure my job was done and so that there weren't any delays. So I'm asking for that same compassion that's being given to a lot of other people to be given to all of the employees. So again, my request is that you reconsider how this policy was written, write it in a more fairly manner, and to truly show that the city of Hayward does care about all of its employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Caitlin Murray. And I just want to remind everybody, this is for public comments on items not otherwise on our agenda.
Hello?
Yes, Caitlin, go ahead.
Thank you. I would also like to comment on the mandate policy. My name is Caitlin Murray. I am also a city employee, an essential city employee that's been working, just as Lima said, during this entire closure. I was born and raised in Hayward, and I have the privilege of being employed at Hayward. I want to voice my concerns tonight regarding the vaccine and testing mandate recently rolled out to all city staff. And I want to request that City Council please take a look at this policy through an equitable lens. Many employees feel this policy has been created without due process in the unions and is unfair and discriminatory towards employees. This policy has already created a growing division between staff and promotes a toxic work environment for all. Policy outlines its purpose as to provide a safe and healthy workplace for employees and the public. I completely agree and understand the city's obligation to protect employees and the public. That's why I'm very confused as to the application of this policy. It directly contradicts the purpose of the policy, and when I ask my union rep, the HR director, the city manager to help me understand this contradiction, no one can explain it. City Council, please, I would like to ask you to please take a look at this policy and help make it fair. Currently, unvaccinated employees are required to test twice a week within 2 days of each test, as well as wear an N95 mask at all times, indoors and outdoors, for your entire shift. If you're a vaccinated employee, you receive a bribe of extra holiday hours, extra 80 hours COVID leave. You are not required to test at all. You just wear a face covering of your choice. Why would HR create a policy that doesn't apply to all employees equally when HR knows there has been many cases of vaccinated employees contracting and transmitting the virus to others? How is that taking measures to ensure safety? How is that fair? Why can no one answer this question? The city does have an obligation to protect its employees and the public. All that we ask is that this policy is looked at with the same equitable lens that is applied to all other policy or topic of discussion. Please, City Council, please implore the leaders of this city to look at the equity of the application of this policy and see what we're talking about. This has not been addressed in the unions. We didn't receive any of this information. We struggled to get it and to make ourselves present and try to voice our opinions, to be met with judgment and speculation and anger that we're questioning anything. This is a choice for our bodies, for everyone in the city of Hayward, for every American. The city of Hayward sets a precedent, just like they've stressed for every other topic. Why not this? Why not its employees? Why not medical freedom?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Minnie Vij. And can you hear us, Minnie?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Hi, good evening. My name is Minnie Vij. I work for the city of Hayward as a public safety programmer analyst, supporting the Hayward Police Department and the Fire Department. I'm a member of Local 21 and am proud to have served in our bargaining team. As you know, we reached an agreement with the city on a new MOU, and we're pleased to have had the city council's support. We stand in solidarity with our union siblings in SEIU and HAME. We support them in their demands for fair wages and equitable treatment. We in IFPTE Local 21 know that our work makes Hayward work, and we hope you will agree that Hayward works best city council to make our union members whole again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Alexis Villalobos.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. Sorry, I am actually just back-to-back Zoom today on so many organizing meetings. I don't have a well-prepared speech for this, but I wanted to come before you and just express my concern about the school closures that were recently announced at the Hayward Unified School District. They're proposing to close down I don't even have the numbers in front of me. I'm just so kind of out of breath here. Like 6 to 8 schools across Hayward in such a haste manner. They proposed this early October, I believe. It was presented. I think there's a letter dated October 5th to the public from the superintendent. And they plan on making a decision in about a month about this major change to our city, to our community. I know you do not run the school board. I know this is not the Hayward Unified School District, but I come to you as leaders of our community and representatives of this city to say something, to get involved, and to try to make sure that this is not done in such a way that leaves community input out. There is no meaningful way for community to give input about this thing that can change our city drastically. There's no input from our departments about what this is going to mean about traffic when they relocate hundreds or thousands of students to have to go across town to get to their elementary schools. None of this is done in a way that's fair or equitable in any sense of the way. And a huge part of this is that when I'm out there door knocking, because we're talking to the community about other things, we're excited about the things Hayward is doing. We're excited about their, the initiatives and the pilot programs you've gotten on, the people's budget, the participatory budgeting process. We're out there and we have had such a great time the last few weeks, knocking on doors and talking to people. But now we have to let them know that this is happening. And everybody has said the same thing. They didn't know it was happening to their community, and they feel blindsided and they feel overwhelmed by the process. And that is not okay. Closing down 6 public schools, while the entire community feels blindsided and overwhelmed by the process is not okay. This timeline is criminal. Like, you need to do something about it. I know that you can. We've seen, Mayor Halliday and City Manager McAdoo, you did an excellent job of standing up to other agencies when they did shit that was really bad for our community. When they tried to do the dirty reopen of the facilities, which, I guess it did happen anyway, but we'll have to follow up on that. But I've seen what it looks like when I see the good leadership from our leaders here in Hayward, and I want to see that here. This is a really urgent matter. Hopefully, you can hear something from you and the council members tonight about that. But I just wanted to come out here and express that concern and to let y'all know that that's going to be on my mind for the next month, and hope that you are all checking in and weighing in that process and representing your constituents throughout that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And right after we finish public comments, we'll have comments from our city manager. And I think that she is going to present some information about the subject that you were talking about, the school closures, and how and when people can weigh in on that matter. So hold on for that. I'll call on Saad Mohammed next.
Hi, City Council, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to first say your passcode for your webinar version has an extra number. It's the 2's not necessary. However, it does work for the call-in. So there might be a difference between the two. I wanted to highlight, Doris, Suzanne, and Minnie, and just saying tonight that, we've been at the table for a long time relative to the amount of time it should take to negotiate a successor. I understand the City Council has supported us in as much as they can, and our hope is that they can do more, because we are still at the table and we are not as close as may have been reported. But I think there's a pathway there. If the direction is there. We're in a time where there's a lot of fracturing of society, where, we want to pull together. Your employees have created the space for city, constituencies to see that, to see normalcy, to see the services continue, to see, the things that the city provides be maintained. And we don't want to continue on, and I'm speaking from the employee's perspective, being fractured. We want unity. We want unity with the city. And like I said, we've been at this for a while. I think it's important that we respect, protect, and invest in your most valuable asset, the employees who deliver the services with quality. We, we like, to see this come to a closure. We will be here speaking with you as much as possible because you are the decision makers. However, our understanding is, your manager needs more room, and it's not there. And to be so close but yet so far is more frustrating. And with all that's going on, with the mandate, with I just heard about the schools, which is unfortunate, and I look forward to hearing the city manager's comments, that we begin to pull our organization as a city organization together, and as much as possible, return to normalcy together. And so that's my comment. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Oh, I'm hearing an echo now. Let's see. Is this a separate person, Madam City Clerk, 769?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I know initially during the meeting that number had the hand raised.
So let's call on that person, whoever that is.
The phone number with the 3 last digits ending on 769. If you wish to speak, could you please go ahead and press *6. I see one hand. That might have been the same number. I don't know if you...
It may have been Mr. Muhammad?
Yeah, we could confirm.
Okay.
Yes, Council, thank you so much for your diligence. That was my number.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any other requests to speak under public comments at the moment. So I'm going to close public comments, and we'll move on to city manager comments this evening. Ms. McAdoo?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask the staff to pull up a PowerPoint slide for me. While they're doing that, just while, in case the mayor mentioned an alternate, but it sounds like the audio is working at home on the audio feed, but if for some reason it goes out or we lose it, what we'll do is we'll take a 15-minute recess and then reconvene the meeting in full Zoom format only. So we'll all go exit the council chambers. And for those members of the public who are here, we do have a conference room where you can watch the meeting on the Zoom webinar and still make a public comment. So just wanted to share that plan. So we put some information, as the public speaker mentioned. The school district obviously is governed by its own school board and governing body and staff, but obviously school boundary changes and closures impact our entire community, so wanted to share these important dates that are coming up. There will be some town hall meetings on Monday, October 18th, Tuesday, October 19th, Wednesday the 20th, and Tuesday, October 26th. You can see the dates and times on the screen. There is a website on the HUSD website. It's www.husd.us/OS. And then there's also an email address, which is osinput@husd.us. And so I know the school district values public input into this process and really wants to hear from the community. I didn't put it up on the screen, but I do believe that the school board meeting where they will be considering recommendations is November 17th. And that all of I think there are Zoom links and others on that web page that's on the screen where you can get more information and log in to listen into those town hall meetings. So just wanted to share that this evening for those who were interested. And those are my only comments this evening, Mayor.
Okay, yes, thank you. And as you said, those meetings, those town hall meetings are on Zoom, and that information is on the school HUSD website. So let's see. So that brings us to our, yes. Oh, sorry. Sorry. We have some council members that want to make a public comment, and And actually, so you didn't have your hand up, did you?
Yeah.
You know, that's funny. I'm not seeing you on here. I am seeing, but I'll call on you. Go ahead, Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Madam City Manager, for bringing that slide up. And, you know, I think like a lot of people, when we received the email, I guess Friday or something, it was quite shocking. Such a big announcement came to us by way of email. However, knowing that we're not the school board and we don't have jurisdiction over the schools, I think the biggest comments I've been getting over the weekend is process and process concerns. And I think the most significant concern is that the time window for these decisions to happen is within like the next 3 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks within that the school board is going to convene and decide this. So that's been sort of the central concern that I've been hearing. The other one is, one other concern I've been getting is if you go back to, and I don't expect you to put the slide back up, but the information regarding the dates and the schools and the regions, school regions that they're going to have these meetings. There you go. There's the slide. There's, while I'm sure there will be option to join online, but if people wanted to go in person, it really doesn't indicate where they're going to be.
I don't believe they are going to be in person. As far as I know, the school district is not holding in-person meetings yet. I believe all of their town halls and everything have still been virtual.
Yeah, well, I know that you and the mayor meets with the superintendent and the president of the school board regularly, and I would really urge that you impress upon them, perhaps they do something that we do similarly to what we do around like a charrette process or stuff like that. Processes that we do when we do budgeting, processes when we do, downtown, like when we did the downtown plan process and the library process and so forth. But anyways, with that said, those were some of the initial comments that I've been getting from the community, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will pass your comments along, your suggestions. Next, Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the school thing that it was surprising. One, the mere fact that we had just, in less than a month, joint city council school board meeting, and this was not brought up is concerning. The amount of development that we are going to be having in the city from the Caltrans parcels, which is nearly 100 acres, all the development that has been in the pipeline thus far, and the increase in population size alone in our city demands that we have schools to service the families that are coming into Hayward. I will say, just from experience in other cities that have decided to close down a school or two because of declining enrollment or because of charters or whatever the case may be, they deeply regret it 10 years later. So I'm genuinely concerned about this. And I think that when we are planning for the future, I think several public comments were made about equity and the mere fact that the way which schools are being targeted, which communities are being targeted. I think that's deeply concerning for me as a council member. Granted, we do not have jurisdiction over the schools, but I would have preferred a more robust conversation. And I think that conversation should still be had between the city council and school board, and seeing what potentially we can do to help in some capacity to keep those schools open, or even temporarily utilize it for some city services even, just to keep them open. So I do want that conversation conveyed to our board president of HUSD as well as the superintendent. And I was a little disappointed that we did not get a heads up ahead of time. With that also, I do just want to highlight that I genuinely do respect our employees and all the work that they've done during the pandemic. I do want us to have a little bit more, robust discussions regarding the negotiations, but also some of the complaints that we have heard. If there is any way to alleviate some of the concerns or discuss some of this with the employees and answer some of their questions, I hope that we can do that. But I want us to be fair to our employees, just as we are trying to be as fair as possible to our residents. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I will say that we do have an HLAC meeting coming up. I think it's this Thursday. That's the Hayward Local Agencies Committee that has representatives of the city, the school district, and HARD. And I'm sure this topic will come up, and we will pass along the comments to council. The members, city council members serving on that are Councilmember Lamnon, Councilmember Andrews, and myself. So anyway, thank you for your comments. And Councilmember Andrews, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to announce the HLAC meeting, Hayward Leadership Advisory Council. And it's going to be this Thursday at 4:30. And I was also curious to know the timeline of when this report came out versus when we actually met as a joint session. I do feel like this item being on the agenda for HLAC, it puts a lot of pressure on 3 council members versus us actually having a full discussion with joint sessions. So I don't know if this is something that we can reconsider for this Thursday as a possible moving of that item, or something we can do. But I think if all the council members want to speak on it, then we should have addressed it earlier in the month. But nevertheless, the meeting is scheduled right now for Thursday at 4:30. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Zermeño?
Yes, for the meeting this Thursday, is there any chance, can members of the public make public comments? They can? Okay, so I encourage the residents out there. We received a lot of mails. I received a lot of mails about the school closing, how dissatisfied they are. So I encourage everyone to, let's see, there's a HUSD meeting tomorrow. The partnership of HARD, HUSD, and the city of Hayward meets on Thursday. Please call in. I believe they're all Zoom, so you can't really go in person. There's also a meeting at Glassbrook School tomorrow, I believe, at 4 or 5 o'clock. Closing school is not that popular, and I'm sure there will be a lot of pushback from the community. So if you are concerned, please make sure that you participate, give input, ask why, and maybe offer some good solutions. Okay, and we certainly are ready to work in partnership with HUSD and HARD. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And we have no other speakers, so, or we have no other council. These were council comments to our city manager's comments, is what we have just been doing. So we will now move on to our action items this evening. First, we will consider our consent calendar, which consists of 4 items this evening, items number 1 through 4. I would entertain a motion. Okay, I heard Councilmember Salinas moving. Councilmember Wahab, were you seconding?
Yeah, I'll be happy to second.
Okay. And did anyone wish to speak? No, on these items. Madam City Clerk, did we have any public requests to speak on any of these items?
No, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of any requests to speak.
Okay, and I'm not seeing anyone in the chambers or hands up. I think we might.
We do have one hand.
Yes,
raised.
Patrick V. And we got him on.
Okay.
Patrick?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Did you wish to address one of these items on the consent calendar?
Yes, the legislative business.
I'm sorry, what?
Or is that not that too soon so far?
What item did you wish to speak on?
The legislative business number 6, Patrick
Oh,
Avenue.
no, we're not there yet. No, we're on items 1 through 4. We'll come to that soon, so
Okay.
hang on. Okay, thank you. So with that, seeing no request to speak, well, we have Ruthie Estrada? No.
She lowered her hand.
Okay. So I think those people wanted to. So these are only items number 1 through 4 on our consent calendar this evening. And we have a motion by Councilmember Salinas, seconded by Councilmember Wahab. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So it was Councilmember Salinas moving, or was it Councilmember Cermeño? Sorry.
Salinas.
Salinas. All right. Thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas. Yes. Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Aye.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Thank you.
And those items were passed with 7 aye votes and no votes. So now we're going to move. Now we come to item number 5. And this item was to be a public hearing on a single-family home on Central Boulevard. After the publication of the agenda, it was learned that council action is no longer required on this, so we won't actually be taking this up. I want to turn it over to the city manager. I do want to say if there was anyone in the room who wanted to speak on this item, we will hear you since it was published on the agenda. But Madam City Manager, do you want to just address this and what has happened with this item?
Sure. So, in our hillside areas, when there is a grading permit on a slope exceeding 20%, that typically requires Planning Commission and City Council review and approval. In this instance, after the Planning Commission hearing, our Public Works staff did re-review this, and there are some specific exemptions that are listed in the municipal code. In this, it's a little technical, but there's an exemption that a grading permit is not required if it is for work within the footprint of an approved building permit or for other minor grading related to a building permit. And so because that is the case in this instance, we can make an exemption and it does not need to be heard by the City Council. Because it had been noticed as a public hearing, we wanted to keep it on the agenda in case there was anyone who wanted to speak, but the council does not need to take action. So we just thought we'd offer an opportunity for any public comments, but then the council can just move on to the next agenda item.
All right. So is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, either from the council or from the public, we're going to move on now to item number 6, which is the Patrick Avenue Safety Project, adoption of a resolution approving proposed changes to the Patrick Avenue Safety Improvement Project. And we will start with a report from our Public Works Director, Mr. Ameri.
Yes. Thank you very much, and good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm going to start off this presentation. As you mentioned, this is regarding Patrick Avenue safety improvements. Next. Maybe I have control. All right, so we are going to cover the purpose of the project, the community feedback that we have received, the next steps in the process, and the recommendation from staff, and we'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. So the project purpose, as you can see here, the Patrick Avenue has a concentration of schools around it. Specifically, St. Bede's School is located right on Patrick Avenue, and Glassbrook Elementary is just off of Patrick Avenue and Gadding. We have received many requests for traffic calming over the months and years for Patrick Avenue. Speeding is a problem. We have received requests for better crosswalks on Patrick. There are 3 uncontrolled crosswalks on Patrick Avenue. And also the council policies regarding Complete Streets project call for streets that can accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, and also vehicles. So these have been our guiding principles. So regarding community feedback, I have to mention that the sketch that you see on top is Patrick Avenue as it existed before October 2020. We prepared a bike and ped master plan that council approved last year, late last year. And as you know, master plans have a 30,000-foot view of projects. They looked at dozens and dozens of streets, and one of them was Patrick Avenue. They recommended improvements that included a class 4 bikeway next to the curb, moving parking away from the curb onto a section of the street, reducing the number of lanes in each direction from 2 to 1, and having a middle turn lane for left turns and emergency access use. So before implementing this, we literally sent thousands of postcards and notification to area residents, publicized this on social media, and asked for comments. But because nothing was existing in the field, I believe, we did not receive a whole lot of comments or concerning comments. So with that, we went ahead, and because we had a paving project on Patrick that just had ended, and we had to do some temporary striping, we went ahead and did some striping on Patrick Avenue. After we did that, and the residents realized that their parking is now moved to, let's say, the middle of the street, and the bike lane is next to the curb. They had some issues, not only cosmetic issues, but real issues related to sidelines and so on, that they got in touch with us and expressed strong concerns against this design. They did not want it, and they asked us to revert back to the way it was, eliminate the bike lanes, go back to 4 lanes. So we reached out to them and we said, change is hard. And what you've seen is the beginning of a change. We appeal to you to give it a little bit of time, maybe 2-3 months of time. We are here, we are city, we'll come back before you, we will hear you out, we'll get your comments, and if we have to even revert back to the way it was, that is not off the table either. But would you give it some time? And they graciously agreed to do that. So in February of this year, earlier this year, we had a virtual community meeting that I believe 120 people attended. 60 of them either spoke or submitted written comments during the meeting. Overwhelming majority, 95% plus, were against the design that we had, and they wanted it changed. So we picked some stakeholders from that group, including St. Bede's Schools, the church, the South Hayward Parish, a business on the north side of the street, and decided to have a virtual stakeholder meeting with them to get their concerns and comments to see if we can address them. We had those and heard them out, but they said, look, the way for you to relate to what's going on is to come out when we tell you to come out, because we told them we've been there many times and we have seen how the street looks like and progressing. They said, no, come on out on a Friday afternoon and some other times that they told us. We did that. So our staff went out there and met with the stakeholders, received their comments, and for themselves saw some of the difficulties with the design as it had been proposed. So then, in June of this year, we had an in-person stakeholder meeting in that we went out there. Jennifer Ott, our assistant city manager, also was included and provided guidance. We went out there and met with the residents, walked the street from the south end to the north end, talked to the church, the school, the businesses, the area residents, and so on, and got all of their comments and thought about how to incorporate the comments. I should also mention that Bike East Bay was there and provided constructive, good comments. Then we had an in-person community meeting at Weeks Park when we presented the ideas that we had received from them and in a balanced solution, what I think is a balanced solution, and I'm going to present it to you in a couple of minutes. And I should say that at the meeting that we had in June, Bike East Bay had a design in mind that they had graciously prepared some handouts, and they shared it with me, and I shared it with the stakeholders at the meeting. During the in-person meeting in July, we talked about the design that the staff was recommending, and also had a conversation about the design that Bike East Bay had suggested. With that, I think that the sense from the community was that the recommendation from staff is a balanced solution. It's not everything that the community wanted, because there were some members that wanted to go back to 4 lanes and eliminating the bike lane and so on, but that it was in total responsive to what they had said. So we took that to Council Infrastructure Committee, because the area residents had felt that staff was recommending what they wanted. They did not show up at the CIC, but Bike East Bay was there and provided some comments. So CIC recommended that staff recommendation be moved forward. They recommended that to City Council, but they also asked us to hire an outside consultant, professional consultant, to take a look at both staff's recommendation and also the Bike East Bay recommended solutions, and comment on it before we came to council. We did exactly that. We hired Kimley Horn, which is a well-known transportation consultant, and they reached out to the community. They had a conversation with the stakeholders. They had a separate conversation with Bike East Bay, and then they issued their draft report. Bike East Bay reviewed their draft report, but wanted to reach out back to the consultant and have a conversation. We accommodated that, so there was a second conversation between them. So the community feedback was that left turn from Tennyson Road onto Patrick Avenue going north was confusing because the merge lane was very short, and drivers did some things that they were not supposed to do. Parking in the middle of the street, quote unquote, middle of the street, was something that they just did not like, not for cosmetic reasons alone. That wasn't the reason. The reason were related to sightlines, safety, convenience of coming in and out, and some other issues. So South Hayward Parish has food drives, once a week. That was also impacted by the new design. St. Bede's student and parishioner drop-off queues were also impacted by putting the bike lane next to the curb. Pedestrian visibility at the crosswalks had been compromised because of the change, and the left turn from Gadding onto Patrick Avenue going north was also made more difficult because now parking was closer to the drive lane, and drive lane was narrower than it should be for safe turn onto the north lane. So we took all of that feedback and we came up with this design, which is, in my mind, a balanced design, an elegant design. Puts the parking next to the curb. That is true. That's what the residents wanted. And this solves a lot of problems related to sight lines and safe entering, exiting driveways. But then we didn't stop at that. We provided a bike lane that's not 4 foot wide, it's 5 foot wide. It has a 3-foot buffer on the side of parked cars. It has a 2-foot buffer on the side of the drive lane, the one drive lane going north. And that the drive lane is 12 foot wide, so cars don't have to be too close to even the side of the buffer. And as you can see, we are showing here the rapid flashing beacon for pedestrian to activate, and this is going to be implemented at each of the 3 uncontrolled crosswalks. There is 1 lane in each direction. There is a turn lane, which can be used for emergency use also. this was the design that we had presented. So this design is responsive to what the community wanted. We returned the parking back to the curb, as I mentioned. We provided a buffered bike lane, returned 2-lane northbound from Tennyson Road to now Roosevelt Avenue to allow for much more, merging distance, not a short one as it was before. We added student and parishioner drop-off at St. Bede's School, which was a main concern for them, and also the adjacent church. They wanted some red curb painted near St. Bede's driveway. We are going to accommodate that. And we had conversations with Yayo's Market for commercial loading that is going to address their needs related to loading, unloading, and not parking in residential areas. And as I mentioned, rapid flashing beacons at all 3 uncontrolled crosswalks. So with that, I'm going to ask our Sharman Sola, who's our senior transportation engineer, to go over some of the details, but not too many details, hopefully. Sharman?
Thank you. So I'll be going through the most common feedback received on Patrick Avenue and staff's proposals to address the feedback. To best address feedback received by the community, the Patrick Avenue segment was split into 3 segments. On this slide, we have a summary of the community feedback on segment 1 from Tennyson Road to Rieger Avenue. We heard from the community that there was a left turn backup on Tennyson from vehicles wanting to make a left onto Patrick, since one of the left turn lanes had high demand while the other had low demand. The turn lanes
oh, there it is. I just wanted to make sure that on Zoom, people were able to see the screen because I wasn't seeing it, but I am now. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, no. Now we're back to just her. Why is that happening? Where is that happening to everyone who's on Zoom?
I do see it, Mayor. Miriam, you may want to pin your screen.
Yeah, no, right. We're seeing in big letters whoever's speaking instead of this visual that we need to be seeing.
Mayor, I could see on channel 15, the slide is showing on channel 15, and I could see it on Zoom.
Okay, I can see it on Zoom now, but I wasn't. See, because I have this. Okay, so go ahead, Charmaine. I think we're seeing it right now. Somehow when you talk, your name comes up. Maybe they fixed it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. We also heard from the community that the turn lanes on Patrick to Tennyson were too short. However, this was a pre-existing condition that was carried over into the project. That bikes have to cross 2 lanes of right turn traffic. Motorists felt as if they had to change lanes too suddenly to go through on Patrick Avenue. And motorists were proceeding straight through the Rieger intersection from the left turn only lane. Next slide, please. Thank you. To address this, it is proposed to return the 2 through lanes on Patrick for the first 2 blocks from Tennyson Road to Roosevelt Avenue to resolve the Tennyson left turn backups, the need to change lanes suddenly, and motorists unlawfully driving straight through the left turn only lane at Rieger. The turn lanes at the Tennyson intersections are short, which were existing conditions carried on to this project, but staff proposes extending the turn lanes by approximately 80 to 100 feet, which provides an increase in capacity by 15 to 18 vehicles. Next slide, please. The unofficial merge that occurred on the first block is proposed to be relocated to the 3rd block of the project between Roosevelt Avenue and Gomer Street, which is a much longer in length block to be able to accommodate a more comfortable merge for motorists. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have a summary of the community feedback on segment 2 from Westwood Street to the mid-block crosswalk in front of St. Bede's School. We heard from the community that there were concerns of passenger drop-off for parishioners in front of the church. There were concerns of student drop-off at the St. Bede's School. We received several requests for improved and enhanced pedestrian crosswalks. And we heard about difficulties exiting the school's driveways. Next slide, please.
Are you seeing?
I don't see anything. Okay. Looks good. Thank you. To address this, the feedback we received on this segment, dedicating a passenger loading zone for parishioner drop-off in front of St. Bede's Church, dedicating an area for student drop-off and pickup times only for St. Bede's School, installing red curb near the driveways and crosswalks to improve visibility, and installing pedestrian rapid flashing lights at both ends of all 3 uncontrolled crosswalks at Westwood Street, St. Bede's Lane, and the mid-block crosswalk in front of the school are all proposed for this segment. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here we have a summary of the community feedback on the last segment of the project from the mid-block crosswalk to Schaefer Road. We heard from the community that there were concerns of commercial trucks double parking in front of Yayo's Market and difficulties with making left turns from Gadding Road. Also, there were concerns of driveway visibility and side street visibility throughout the project corridor. Next slide, please. To address this, staff proposes installing a dedicated truck loading zone for the
Thank you, Charmin. So the way that we presented this at the July 19th community meeting was that these changes were proposed and discussed with the community. The changes were generally well received. As I mentioned, there were still some comments about maybe in the future this may or may not work, and we told them that we are going to be there and monitoring the performance of this. Some additional suggestions from the community was that we should install stop signs at Patrick and Westwood, extending the red curb at the intersection to increase visibility and sight of line, and no commercial vehicle parking on Patrick Avenue. As I mentioned before, Bike East Bay also talked about the two-way cycle track for bicyclists to make it super safe for them. So this is the two-way cycle track that was proposed by Bike East Bay. As you can see, the bike lane has been removed from the west side of the street so that the concern that the parish had has been resolved. However, the bike lane has been added to the east side, which basically added to the concerns that the church and the St. Bede's School had previously. They did not want this design. As CIC had recommended, first of all, they recommended approval of the staff proposal, but also they suggested that we hire a third-party consultant to review both designs, the staff proposal and also Bike East Bay's two-way cycle track design. We did that, as I said, by using Kimley Horn. So Kimley Horn had conversations with the stakeholders and with Bike East Bay, and basically their peer review concluded that the buffer bike lane design is consistent with the city's desire to improve safety and connectivity, and that it best addresses residents' concerns. Regarding the cycle track design, which was proposed by Bike East Bay, while they acknowledged that it would increase bicycle comfort, they also said that it increases conflict risks and therefore was not recommended. So staff recommendation is for the buffered bike lane, maintaining bike lanes with buffers. There is going to be no loss of safety benefits. It is going to be well received by majority of the community, as it was expressed to us at the meetings that we had with them. Next step is that if council is going to support staff's recommendations and approve this, we are going to get some costs related to implementing the changes, including the crosswalk changes at the crosswalk and restriping and so on, and come before you in November with a final cost recommendation. With that, I'm just going to go over staff's recommendation, which is we are here for questions for staff first, then public comments, and then council comments, not committee comments, and then staff's recommendation that council adopt the resolution approving changes to Patrick Avenue Safety Improvement Project. In closing, I just want to say that we have had many conversations with Bike East Bay. I have gotten to know Dave Campbell personally and benefited from his recommendations and suggestions. I am looking forward to having long-term professional relationship on not only this project, but many upcoming projects, and hopefully our recommendation on this is not going to interfere with our relationship in the future. With that, I thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So right now we're going to go to council questions only. This is a public hearing item, so council members, limit your questions, please. And we'll start with council member Zermano.
Alex, thank you very much. Good report. It's stated in the staff report that, and you stated also that the community seems to like this idea. My question is, how sure are we of this? As you know, I receive many emails. Stop the speeders on Patrick. Stop them. Stop them. So we did do something, but it was too radical a change, and the community just went up in arms and said, we don't want it. So is this less radical? Is this more acceptable? Are we convinced of it?
It is less radical and more acceptable, but the core of the safety improvement, which is going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, and the turn lane and emergency use lane, have remained, and we have information to support that safety has improved. The speeding has been reduced by 5 miles per hour already. Yeah. This design is going to be kept and incorporated into the buffer bike lane and the cars parked next to the curb.
So I think we all agree, the question is that these traffic calming processes and ideas is to slow people down.
Exactly.
That is correct, right?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they need to be more careful when they're driving because we're closer together. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Salinas?
Yeah, thank you. And I didn't see it here unless I missed it. Do we have? Did we track accidents on this corridor? During this period of time where we had this. I know we weren't finished with it, but I know that we had some accidents there, and I was just curious. Did we track how many we had in that length of time?
We have some information, and I will ask Charmaine to elaborate if she has access to the numbers.
Yeah.
Hi,
Thank you.
We did do a preliminary analysis of the collisions. We currently only have updated collision data till the end of 2020. So we don't have complete collision data for the year 2021, but from, since implementation to the end of the year, we saw that collision rates have decreased by around 60%. But again, that's only using data from about 3.5 months. We would have to wait until the end of the year to be able to have complete information for 2021 collision data.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, I asked that because I know on social media, I know we have had other accidents, big accidents, along that corridor. The other question I have is regarding participation of the neighborhood in feedback. I noticed that the preceding meetings when we were doing the after the initial how could I put it, when the neighborhood really began to organize once we began to implement this, are my observations correct that there was a increase of actual neighbors coming out and addressing their concerns and sharing their concerns with this?
Absolutely correct. As I mentioned, the first virtual meeting that we had in February had 120 people, as I recall, present during the Zoom meeting, and 60 of them either spoke or submitted comments in chat. So that was good participation for any community meeting of this sort.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you, Mayor. So wanted to ask a little bit more about the bike lanes. And, I really appreciate, those are comments, I'll say that later. But is the plan, whether it's a two-way bicycle route or the staff recommendation of the separated bike lanes, is there an intention to put bumps on the road, to have uprights? What's the delineation? Is there delineation beyond the paint?
So in this type of design, because parking is next to the curb, it is not practical to have those kinds of separations. So we are not recommending to have those kinds of, plastic separations between the bike lane. I don't personally believe that that is necessary because of the presence of the buffers, the size of the bike lane, the width of the travel lane next to the buffer that is 12 foot wide. It is not necessary either.
So I guess I respect that, and human nature being what it is, what would prevent somebody from just driving into the bike lane or discourage people from driving into the bike lane?
Nothing prevents someone that loses control to do that, but even if the bike lane is next to the curb, there is that possibility because you don't have a complete row of cars parked next to the bike lane at all times. That is possible. There are also some other issues related to those, cycle track, 2 lanes of bike lane at the curb, because people that are coming out of the driveways, they have to look both ways to watch out for bicyclists before they can even enter the roadway to look for cars that are coming in order to make their turn. So that is also a challenge. That is a safety issue.
Certainly. It's, how big a challenge? I've had folks driving the same or riding the same way, but when they were on the sidewalk. I didn't see them coming either, and so it's always a challenge to look out for bikes, whichever direction they're coming from. But I guess I'm not entirely understanding if the bike lanes are how much more conflict is it than sort of the staff proposal, the two-way?
So one major conflict is, even the way it is right now, the sight lines are compromised because people cannot see because the cars are parked so many feet away from the curb. It's very hard to see if cars are coming, if they're coming out to make the turn. When there is that much more distance and then there is a parked car, it is going to be even that much more difficult to see if the cars are coming in order to make a safe entry into the road and make a turn.
Thank you. And one last question. Was there any comment from AC Transit on the bus stop?
AC Transit has not, they have a 12-foot wide lane for their bus lane, and they are fine with that.
Okay. They're fine with the staff recommendations? Or?
Correct.
Okay. Great. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. I just wanted to get a better sense. I know there was a lot of outreach efforts, but can you just kind of summarize how we targeted the neighborhood and just interested parties with all of the different virtual and in-person meetings that took place for this project?
So as I mentioned, earlier on with the initial implementation, we reached out by sending thousands of postcards and publicizing it on social media, on our website, and so on. But then after the initial virtual meeting that we had, or at the initial virtual meeting, we had wide participation, 120 people participated, and then based on grouping of interest, from, let's say, the business people, from St. Bede's School, from the church, from the neighborhood, those who had, strong opinions about this and some ideas to implement, we basically reached out to them and wanted to have separate meetings with them to get more of their specific comments. That is when we had the second virtual meeting, and followed by going into the field and meeting with them in person and basically walking the site, listening to their comments, and let them point out the areas of their concern. So the outreach was robust, I think, and beyond what we have normally done in these kinds of implementations, way beyond.
Thank you. And then I believe it was colleague Andrews at our infrastructure meeting who made the request to have the proposed two-cycle bike lane for Bike East Bay looked at by a consultant. How was that consultant selected? And when that was done, was there any circling back to Bike East Bay?
Yes, I will let Charmin talk about the selection of the consultant, but I want to just point out that Bike East Bay wanted to have a conversation with consultant separately and express their ideas and opinions about this. We made that possible. We also made it possible for other community members to have the same opportunity to reach out and express. As I mentioned earlier, after the draft report came out, Bike East Bay wanted to have another conversation with Kimley Horn, and we made that possible, and that took place before the comments were finalized in a final report. Charmin probably can speak to the selection of the consultant. Kimley Horn is a widely known expert in transportation, and Charmin, can you speak on their selection?
Right, we currently have 3 consultants on contract, Kimley Horn, Kittleson, and AMG. Kittleson prepared the bike ped master plan, so we wanted to stay clear of any conflicts of interest with the peer review. AMG helped with some issues in the area in the past, so we just wanted to choose a consultant with fresh eyes.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, for your presentation. And thank you to staff for getting that peer review consultant. I know that was going above and beyond, but I felt it was really important for us to have experts who study traffic patterns and traffic behavior to really look at both proposals with fresh eyes and really have a fair assessment of what the proposals are. So I know that was a lot of work. It's not easy to do, to get proposals and actually execute on them. But I really appreciate you taking that time to do that. So one question I have is with that, sorry, that was a comment, sorry about that. But my question is that when I asked like multiple times about removable bollards, why can't we use them? Can you relay that, the reasons why it can't work given the parking situation and near the driveways? Can you explain that? Because I do see a lot of images with that, and I think the public should know why it may not work on this particular street.
So in order for the cars to be able to park next to the curb, they'll have to basically go through the bike lane. And if there are bollards, it's going to be difficult to do that, to go, maneuver around the bollards to go and park at the curb. The bollards are usually used when the bike lane is next to the curb and there is no need for the cars to go through them in order to park.
And have you seen any other residential locations that had this type of design with raised bumpers in a way that it's actually not bumpers for the cars to slow down, but bumpers next to where the pedestrians walk or where the bike lane is to help I don't know if that's something that is possible. Have you seen anything like that, almost like truncated domes or something that alerts the driver that you're veering too far in?
Given the level of traffic here, the configuration of the cross-section and the road, the design of the bike lane, the way that it is proposed right now, 5 foot wide with basically 5 feet of buffer, 3 feet on one side, 2 feet on the other. There is no need for that kind of design right now. I have seen those in some situations, but I don't believe that that is necessary for this design. We have seen, all around the Bay Area, bike lanes that are 4 foot wide, are next to parked cars and next to the drive lane. This design is, in my opinion, better than 95 to 99% of not only what exists today, but new implementations of the bike lane. In Hayward, we don't have anything as good as this design that we are proposing to you tonight, maybe with the exception of Mission Boulevard Phase 2, which is a different design and has a Class 4 bike lane on a very, very busy thoroughfare.
Okay, and then the last question I have is, I've seen a lot of cities have it at mainly the intersections. So they'll have the bollards at the intersections, and then the rest of the street has the painted lines. Is that something that we've looked into?
We can definitely look into that, and if appropriate, implement it for sure.
Okay, I think, do you believe a lot of the conflicts that we see on this street is at intersections? Because that's some of the community feedback, is when you turn onto Patrick, or when you're turning onto Tennyson, that's where they're getting a lot of conflicts. And then also when you're turning into the residential streets and off, when you're turning off of Gadding on Harder. Can we look at those sections to see? Because then that at least slows down cars a little bit. I think it would slow them down a little bit so it could be less potential conflicts on that street.
Absolutely. Anything that can improve safety, we are happy to look into. That's a good suggestion. We are going to look into it and discuss it with our consultant, Kimberly Horn, and implement it if proven to be beneficial.
Okay. Sorry, I would have mentioned it earlier if I thought of it earlier for Kimberly to study it. So appreciate you looking into that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Andrews, actually, we do have some of those proposed now at the intersections for our final striping plan. So also known as daylighting, we have painted safety zones only at the corners to improve visibility. So we do have those.
So they're painted, or are they sticks? Or
Sorry, they're painted, and they're safe hit posts at the corners only.
Safe hit posts at the corners only.
The delineators.
Yes, I think I'm thinking of something a little bit wider. I've seen it at on Broadway and 13th in Oakland and some other locations. Is it similar to something like that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It didn't feel that way to me when I read it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And, I just want to ask right now, this is a relatively new design for bicycles, and based on our bike master plan, we have a number of areas in the city. This model was used on Huntwood and appears to not have generated the number of complaints. It's a different kind of street without as much, I don't think, of the residential, or really any residential component, at least on the part I'm thinking of. But, so I just wondered if you had gotten any feedback on the way this particular model that we're looking to change here was implemented on Huntwood. And the other thing I wanted to ask, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they were saying that actually, I think they were referring to Huntwood, but that moving the parking lane out into the street and having the bike lane between the sidewalk and the parking lane has generated, I think it was in the Huntwood area, has generated dumping by people, like that there have been mattresses dumped. And have you encountered that in these other areas or on Patrick, where we're talking about tonight?
So first, related to Huntwood Avenue, we have not received a whole lot of feedback, negative feedback, that has been in place now for a number of months, and we haven't received. That is what I was saying, that to a master planner, a company that is looking at so many different streets, they do not see the specifics of one street versus the other, and they make recommendations that are similar for two entirely different streets. Like they did not pay attention to St. Bede Church, St. Bede School, South Hayward Parish, the market that had some specific issues. Those issues do not exist on Huntwood Avenue. We have not received that kind of feedback, nearly that kind of feedback from Huntwood Avenue. Regarding illegal dumping, I have not heard anything about more illegal dumping on Patrick. I will look into what has happened on Huntwood and see if it is related to the change in the street design, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's all of the council questions right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open public comment on this item. And we do have some requests to speak, I think both from our Zoom people and people right here in our chamber. So I'm going to first call on Kim Soria. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, my concern is with Patrick. I'm a school bus driver. I drive up and down that street 3 or 4 times a day. The way that you've answered pretty much all of the questions that I came here for. Having the cars parked in the middle I just see it every day. People they're slamming on their brakes because they notice all of a sudden it goes from gadding 2 lanes into 1, but the 1 is real short. So everybody's trying to get over, so you're not even paying attention to the crosswalk that's coming now because you're worried about all the cars that are trying to move in. The crosswalk has no signal light. You got this Catholic school that's right there. Then on Tuesdays you have all the church that feeds with the food drive. Now there's not even a lane for the cars, but you have a 7-foot island in the middle. So you've taken away the 2 lanes, which has caused nothing but congestion. When this was done, school wasn't in. People weren't back at work yet. It takes almost 15 minutes to get from Patrick to the end of Tennyson. And then when you get to Tennyson, because you have the stop signs, you've got 20 cars backed up. Coming from Tennyson to get onto Patrick, sometimes you sit through that light twice because you don't want to get in the middle of the intersection by Kentucky Fried Chicken. So there's just a lot of, as far as bicyclists go, hey, that's my main concern. I have grandkids. I look out for bicyclists. Out of 6 months of this being, I'll say 4, I've seen 2 bicyclists on that street. And both of them were on the sidewalk on St. Bede's, going the wrong way. Okay? So as far as bicyclists having that much, we're not thinking of the people that got to go to work every single day and drop off. People drop off their kids now. It's not like we walk to school. It's every parent is out there. We've got 4 high schools that are down on Tennyson Road. So I just think putting the cars back where they used to, even considering 2 lanes again. And Huntwood doesn't have that problem because, well, they have that problem, but not as bad as Patrick because, like he said, you've got a church, you've got a store, you've got Kentucky Fried, you've got the vendors that are selling chicken now on the corners. So yeah, there's a lot of traffic going on over there, and it gets a little frustrating. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dave Campbell.
This is Dave Campbell, Advocacy Director with Bike East Bay. I want to start off by thanking staff. They've been super cooperative to work with. I applaud Hayward. We work in 33 cities, and the staff here have been, in many ways, exemplary and open. Bike East Bay has been heard, I will say that. I know y'all were asking some questions along those lines. We're not asking to be heard more than any resident who lives on the street or any stakeholder on the street. The reason we ask to be heard is because people have asked for safety on this street. And I went to several of the community meetings and even on site at a stakeholder meeting. And the people who are asking for safety on the street, they had asked for that safety, but they weren't returning to all these other meetings. And they may not be calling in tonight either. It's hard to keep calling in and saying, I want safety on my street, or the safety on the street that I use. And so I think staff's recommendation does a good job of addressing what they've heard from the residents who live on the street and for the people who drive the street. And if you said, Dave, design a street for those people, I'd say do what staff is proposing. The problem is the people who've asked for safety. We have not heard from them, what do you think of staff's recommendation? And that's what I've challenged staff with is, what do the parents whose kids go to the elementary schools in this neighborhood who asked for safety on this street and on Tennyson as well, what do you think? Will this design address your concerns? They're likely to say, I don't know. I'd have to go out there and try it, which is why we did what we did on Patrick, to try something to see. And it would be great to hear from those parents. And a lot of them were Spanish-speaking parents. And I say that because at the workshop that they held, that I think Councilmember Andrews was at, the Spanish-speaking parents applauded the city for having Spanish language at that workshop, and they specifically asked, when we do follow-up on this project, would you please offer Spanish translation for us? And that didn't happen. And I'm not an advocate for Spanish-speaking people. That's not per se my job. I think Hayward can decide for themselves when a Spanish-speaking part of our community asks for safety improvements, and then we do follow-up and we change things because we hear concerns like staff are trying to address, and we don't hear from those Spanish-speaking people. How do we value public process in Hayward? That's for this council to decide. And so this is the one area I've challenged staff. I think this project could be better is the people who asked for safety, the people who say cars are speeding on my street, will this satisfy their concerns? I don't think it will. I think what you're going to find is cars are going to speed down this wide buffered bike lane. Why not? It's right there. And they're going to do it. And why do I think they're going to do it? Because they do this on buffered bike lanes everywhere else where you have these long streets with high-speed traffic. That's the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay, and now we're going to move to Zoom, and we have Luna Bocanegra.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, perfect. Thank you, council members, for having this meeting. My name is Andrea Luna Bocanegra. I am a teacher at St. Bede. I also have students that attend that school. So I have a concern about the way that the current system is set up. There's been a few accidents actually in the last month or so that could have been avoided. What's happening is that people that are turning onto Schaefer, that are going from the school onto past the other school that's right on Schaefer, these cars are using the bike lane to turn onto Schaefer Street. So they're going in between the parked cars and going around it and cutting that way, which there have been 3 accidents that I have witnessed that they've been pick up the cars because they're so damaged, or the accident is horrible. Because of that, they're cutting through so the other car that turns doesn't see that car that cut through and hits it. So that has happened just in the last month. I also am curious to know who surveyed this area to see how many people biked going to school or biked in that street. As the lady that spoke at the beginning, she was right. I've only seen 2 maybe bikers, and they always use the sidewalk. They do not use the bike lane. If this was a safety concern, there should be more lighting on that street. There should be another crosswalk in that street. If this is truly for bikers, why doesn't this lane go all the way down to, Harder? Why doesn't it go all the way down to Harder? It stops right there, right where Schaefer is. So that, I don't understand how that is to accommodate cyclists if it doesn't go all the way down the street. There still is a problem with dropping off students at the school. There's traffic. Students are late to school because the parents can't turn on safely onto the street. So it causes this traffic jam of people trying to get in and out. So there's folks that are trying to go onto Tennyson to get the freeway, and then there's parents that are trying to get onto the school grounds to drop off their students. So it has been just a nightmare, both before school when students are being dropped off, and then after school when students are leaving. I leave after hours once all the kids are gone, and I still have issues of potentially getting hit because we have cars that don't care that there's someone trying to get out and your car is coming out of the driveway. You have to go a little bit further in order to see past that parked car, and you almost get hit. And again, there's not enough lighting there, so if there's a kid that's walking, he's going to get hit. There's no way they can be seen. And so I don't understand how the process happened. I don't know how if there was a survey. I hope there was a survey. And also, if this was really a safety thing, there's other things that should have priority versus the changes that were made. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick V.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Director Amari for his work with reaching out to us. The follow-up once they got painted, the outreach was fantastic. Before that, I don't remember seeing anything except for right before it got painted, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like we have been heard as residents of the Patrick Avenue corridor, that the compromise getting the parking back against the curb. I've lived on this street for 28 years almost, and the first 25 years there was maybe 4 accidents from the cars being parked at the curb, hit by speeders or drunk drivers. Mine was one of them about 4 years ago. But since then, there's been at least 6 in the last year, so traffic has always gotten worse. To put a 2-way bike lane that the Bike East Bay is wanting to do and putting parking even further out into the street is not acceptable for a high density residential area. If we had 12 apartment complexes and there was only 6 driveways on one side of the street, Huntwood is in between Huntwood Way and Tennyson with railroad tracks, that's a perfect place for a 2-way drive bike lane. But Patrick Avenue is not it. The biking there's more than 2. There might be 2 or 3 bicyclists a day. And just the other day, I was walking up by Weeks Park. A bicyclist, I'm going to say it was a father and son, about a 7-year-old son, were heading south on Patrick in the northbound side. The son almost hit me and my dog because he was going to avoid a bicyclist going north on the sidewalk. So, I mean, that was the most bicyclists I've seen, and I almost got hit, almost hit my dog. When I told the guy, hey, there's a nice, beautiful bike lane on the other side of the street, use it. He told me I was number 1. So I didn't realize I was number 1. I'm not number 1 in my eyes, but it's much better with, and I think the parking being against the curb is safer for us now because I've got grandkids. I got to open up the driver's door to put the grandkids in the car seat on that side. With the bicycle lane there's a buffer lane. We have room to open doors. Out in the street, there's no room. Let's get it moved, and the staff recommendation is a very good compromise, and most of my neighbors are for that compromise that we have. So I want to thank you, and I appreciate Charmin's personal outreaches to me with emails and that. Thank you. I feel like I've been listened to as a tax-paying citizen of this city.
Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Ducey.
Yes, Bruce Dugy here. I would like to, I'm actually for the protected bike lanes, always for more protection for cyclists. I want to, point out that the speeds are definitely going to go up. They've dropped 5 miles per hour, the average speeds, because of the friction of the parked cars. As soon as that friction goes away, which it will when the cars are moved to the curb, the speeds will go right back up. They're even planning to widen the lane from 11 feet right now to 12. So in addition to having all the buffered space of the bike lane, but so they should at least go back to an 11-foot lane and put a 3-foot buffer between the driving lane and the bicyclists, because that just there's just data galore that the wider the lane is, the faster the speed. So I'm really puzzled why they're going exactly in the opposite direction. The other thing is I'd like to say, one of the council members was talking about some separation. What about rumble strips? they have these rumble strips that they put indentation into the asphalt. And so when cars go over, there's a lot of roads that they have it on the edge line, the fog line. And so so when the driver goes into that, then he can hear the rumble like that. And so that seems to me like something that could help keep the driver in line. So I guess those are my comments. I'm definitely for greater separation. You know, we do want to encourage people to get out of their cars. We have you know, a serious greenhouse gas issue, you know, with climate change. So we need to do what we can. You know, historically, Hayward is this extremely hostile environment to cycle. So this is part of why you're not seeing so many bicyclists. So you really have to build out your network before people are going to even want to start to cycle. And I want to say that Richard Hurst, that died on Tennyson, that was in a bike lane, so the paint didn't protect him. And I want to say he would never, he didn't live in Hayward, so he never would have been contacted in any way for his feedback on you know, this Patrick or Tennyson. And he died near Patrick, so you know, his voice was definitely would never be heard, and it wasn't heard, and people like him. So I'm a little disappointed, but you know, buffered bike lane is, I guess, better than no bike lane, which is what I had before. So I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Ruthie Estrada.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us. I just want to say that I have not seen safety improve at all. The speeds have gotten worse. I have lived in Union City in this area for 33 years, and bikers are not on Patrick. Now they're on sidewalks. When I walk my dog daily, I walk on Patrick daily, and I don't see guys on bikes are always in the sidewalk about to run me over, like the other citizen that spoke. They're not on that bike lane that's sitting there that's too big. As far as car accidents, you're not going to see a good, how to say it, report on that, because if there's no injuries, the officers are not going to come out and take a report. So you'll never get a good feedback on how many accidents, although I've witnessed several, almost accidents every day. People are not watching. That extra lane being way out in the middle of the street for people to park on, so dangerous. Everyone's saying that. The middle lane, it doesn't work as a turn pocket all the time because a lot of people don't know how to use it. That is a big problem. They don't know how to use it. I feel so bad for the people who actually live on Patrick. I don't actually live on Patrick. I just live behind those areas, because pulling out of those driveways, I watch these people every day trying to pull out, and I feel so bad for them because they can't see. Of course, everyone knows the big problem coming from Tennyson to Patrick. All I know is that it's gotten worse. The traffic has not gotten any better. The safety, I think, is not the priority here. It seems like it's gotten so much worse. The double parking, everything. So my thing is, I would prefer to it go completely back to the regular way it was. That's my priority. I am willing to compromise with this last proposal that's been shown to us, because the curbside parking comes back, but I still don't think it's completely what we need. Our street is not really the street to do this on. So that is my opinion. And we're not like Huntwood, because they don't have as many residential homes on there. It's mostly apartments and the park. But I do see a big problem there because I do drive that street daily as well. Just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And I hope this goes through, because I'm really tired of the way things look right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Suzanne.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm not even in the Patrick Avenue area, but I've been seeing the posts on Nextdoor and Facebook about this situation. And I'm not always one to comment, but I just feel like I have to comment about this tonight. One question I have is, while I'm not sure what his name was, the city employee did the research on this just recently, and they said that, oh, only so many cars pass through this way and that way. Did he happen to investigate how many injuries and accidents had happened during the time that he was checking this information out? Do you know that?
I'm sorry, please just go ahead and give your comments.
Okay, I will, and then I'll ask for a response. So anyway, the Bike for East Bay, they're out of Oakland. I just checked their information, and there's 4 board members, there's 13 members, and they're all out of Oakland, Berkeley, Walnut Creek, and Dublin. Why is the city council being forced to create these projects based on out-of-area people's opinions? I think this project was put forward because the state transportation grant money needed to be spent, and you guys were shuffling and scuffling around trying to figure out what you're going to do with that money so you didn't lose it, and you did this. And I really feel that you guys are not making really smart decisions about our city. So now we spent that grant money, and now we've got such a problem. Everyone's against it, and we're going to have to fix it, and we're going to have to fix it on our own budget, our own tax dollars, not grant money. So these are just thoughts that come through my mind when I'm listening to these things. And I really want to know why the city's doing this, why they can't be more prepared. If they're going to get grant money, be prepared with things that you want to do, projects that you want to do. You've already done the research on it. You really know that you want to spend the money on it. And when you get the grant money, you're going to do it. But I don't think we should be answering to Bike East Bay, because how many bikers traveled on that route when this was being investigated? I'm sure they never checked it out. My questions, I hope you can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have TJ Hayward, Concerned Citizens.
Hi, I'm PJ with Hayward Concerned Citizens, supporting our Patrick Avenue residents and echoing some of Suzanne's comments before me. I think the lesson learned with Patrick Avenue and with Hayward Boulevard is to be proactive and consult with the impacted community, fire department, local businesses, and schools, etc. first, before spending all the money hiring consultants, designing plans, and making renovations. Our residents use these streets every day, and they know what will meet their needs. And to walk it back one more step, it would be helpful for the city to be more proactive in the future by consulting with residents about how grant money might be well spent before getting it, sort of a bucket list, if you will. Thanks for the presentation and for trying now to make things right. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Donna Evericks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just wanted to give a quick little summary. I travel this road multiple times a day, taking my kids to school, and I do home health. The cars that are double parking has made it a challenge. Sorry, my cuckoo clock's going off. Hold on a sec. The biggest concern is the safety issue, which they're talking about, but I think safety has gotten worse because people turning from Tennyson onto Patrick or people turning from the side streets onto Patrick have blocked views because of the way the parking is set up right now. It's really causing major traffic jams in the morning from 7:30 to 8 in the morning. It's backed up from Tennyson all the way up through St. Bede. And to consider that there are more and more buildings and apartments being built, the traffic congestion has gotten so bad, cutting back from 2 lanes to 1 has made this even worse of a safety issue here because of the volume of traffic. I think I've seen very, very few bikers on this road. I agree that we want to be friendly to the kids in the schools and stuff like that, but Huntwood is painted that way. It's a less traveled route. It would be much better. They can still get to all those schools via Schaefer, whether it's St. Bede or I think that's Glasswood right there. But the cars that are parked away from the curb are blocking the view and causing more accidents. I swear there's like an accident or a car hit probably at least once a week, definitely every 2 weeks since that has been changed. I think the biggest thing that we need to do is consider that the people that are living on that road and then the food that's being distributed by that church right there, it has just made things, I think, less safe because people are impatient and people, with the limited change or time and distance to turn off of Patrick onto some of those side roads, it's just made such a mess that they need to go back and reconsider. I agree with compromises and trying to put the parking back up against the curb and having a biker lane. But again, people are already explaining that they're not using those biking lanes at all. And so we need to go back and really look at the benefit of the community itself. It's a huge thoroughfare. I don't know why or who put the thought that this would be a good thing on Patrick. Huntwood, maybe, it's not the ideal, but it's a lot better than Patrick as that major thoroughfare. And you need to really go consider, like the lady that just spoke said, and go back to square one where it used to be to make a difference for, again, the biggest thing, that the traffic congestion and that there's more people properties being built on that road for safety of everybody and put the bikes onto a less traveled road. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was the last public speaker that I can see. Madam City Clerk, is that you aren't aware of any others right now that wish to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, so I'm going to close public comment and go back to council. Councilmember Salinas.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all the callers for calling in. And we, I think a lot of what you expressed, I think, were very similar to what we have seen not only tonight, but what we have captured in the staff report, but mostly in the summary of community feedback, which I was pleased to see. Also wanted to thank, the engaged neighbors. I know, I want to just make an observation. The city, and staff, when we say the city, I'm going to point to staff here in this comment. We they do their due diligence, right? I'm not going to, and we send out postcards on a lot of meetings, and every time there's a change in roads or there's a change in something, or when we do developments or something, by law and per city policy, we notify the neighborhoods, and we notify people within 500 feet. Sometimes we notify people within 1,000 feet, depending on what the project is. And so we do a lot of outreach, and sometimes community engagement is low the first time around. And, it's the nature of the business, right? And as somebody who does a lot of community engagement work in my own personal life, in my professional life, I wish it was as easy as you just put out a flyer and then, the day of the meeting, you get 100 people in a room, But, sometimes it takes, a second go around to get feedback. So, I just wanted to thank all the, the neighbors, and I wanted to thank staff for, being patient and listening. I do believe staff listened. There's 33 pages here of, the last go around of feedback, and we certainly got a lot of email and I think I might have even told Mr. Director Mary about this. But I grew up right off of a Gomer. I grew up off that street, and when the lady who used to babysit me calls me up and files a complaint, then I certainly listen. But at the end of the day, Patrick Avenue is a busy street, and we all know that. I mean, it's busy. It's between Tennyson and Harder, two very busy thoroughfares, and our focus is safety. It's safety, and we we do what we can, and this. Let's not forget what the original intent of this project was. It was to be safer, right? It was to create a safer space and a safer environment for pedestrians and bicycles and cars all simultaneously. And so, but anyways, so here we are again, and we're gonna take another shot at this. So, there's three things that come to mind. One is that we've had extraordinary neighborhood support, and even after all of the meetings over the last couple of months, one of the two of the most ardent opposers of this configuration called me up and said, what staff did was great. They listened to us. And they also had great things to say about Bike East Bay, and they were happy that a compromise was struck, and that there was an arrangement that everybody was okay with. The other thing is that I'm also satisfied that bicycles are protected, and yes, this street has a lot of schools. It's got a lot of churches. There's a lot of bikers, walkers, strollers, skateboarders, and so forth. And so I am satisfied that this new arrangement will get us to what we need to do, and that is to do what Councilmember Sedmenyo mentioned a little earlier, which is to be safer, right? We want to create a safer space. And lastly, our job isn't done making this, 3 mile or 2.5 mile stretch of road the safest place possible. And I know that, in the sustainability committee, we have the second half of this, down the road, but there's the Gomer to Harder that we're going to be looking at, and I know Bike East Bay will be in the room, and I know all other stakeholders will be in the room. So I will be supporting this, and with those comments, I'll be moving the item.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so the staff recommendation has been moved by Councilmember Salinas and seconded by Councilmember Zermeño. So we'll go next to Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Director Amiri. Director Amiri, do you know I don't know the actual word for it, but basically the thing that was kind of described where when you're on the freeway and you go too much to the right, it starts to make this loud sound. I don't remember the name of it.
Rumble strips, yes.
Yes. What did you think about that particular comment?
I think it is a good idea. We'll look into it. We can implement it if necessary. As I have told the neighborhood, we are the city, we are there, we are going to listen to them, we are going to respond positively to their comments. We are going to be there and monitor and improve and make it as safe as possible. I like that idea. We will monitor it and, if necessary, implement it.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, could I ask Councilmember Wahab, what was the idea again? I didn't quite.
One of the comment makers stated that we should have some ripple strips.
Oh, yes, okay, I remember that, thank you.
To just alert the cars. I personally like that. I actually think that we should utilize the ripple strips. I like it on the freeway too, personally. And especially if we're trying to highlight safety and alert the driver that, hey, pay attention, either they're distracted or as so many people said, driving their kids or so forth. I really like that. I also understand, I know that the residents aren't happy. To be completely frank with everybody, I think soon after this particular idea was implemented, we got complaints left and right regarding this particular issue. The goal in regards to biking is that our overall effort is to make the city more green, and it is to kind of promote other modes of transportation, whether it's public transportation, whether it's biking, walking, so forth. So I do want to highlight that, throughout the entire city, that is the type of effort that we are trying to implement. My question to Director Amiri is that when we do receive a grant, do we reach out to the communities prior to the grants? And I know the grants are sometimes restricted funds for a specific set purpose, and we can't necessarily do whatever we want with grant funding. How do we engage the public beforehand rather than after the fact?
We absolutely do that. We reach out and get public comment. In this particular case, we had a bike and ped master plan that identified Patrick Avenue as a candidate for bike lanes and recommended certain type of bike lane. Council policies call for complete streets, which is aligned with what we did there. This is a project that we had just finished paving. So the option was to stripe it the old way or stripe it the new way. It wasn't a big financial burden to stripe it in the new way, and that is what we did. So it wasn't like we received a grant and we wasted it on, a lot of things that are not necessary. We could have striped the old way and then having to remove the old stripe and come up with the new one, or the decision was made to let's go ahead and stripe it the new way, and then we make modifications as necessary.
Okay. And, I do just want to highlight to the public that sometimes we are restricted in what we're doing, and we are trying to fulfill that full strategic vision of the city that is discussed quite often. I fully support the staff recommendation. I also like the ripple stripes and some of the comments that were made to promote safety. I also think that one of the concerns is, and I've been the biggest advocate in regards to parking, as much as we want to move to a greener environment, and of course, I think every member of the council is supportive of that, we also have to understand the realities that we live in, and that is honestly, people park, people drive, and it's going to take time before we get into that green environment that we really want to be in. These are small steps towards that. And I hope that we can kind of accomplish more around the city. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I do appreciate the public comments that were made. I know that this has been kind of difficult for that particular segment of the community. So I do appreciate you guys working with our staff. I also want to commend our staff for, we tried something, it didn't work the way that was planned, the way that, it was envisioned. And, this is the situation about policy is one thing, and then implementation and practice is another. And again, I do want to thank staff for kind of working with the community and trying to find a middle ground to pursue our vision, but also be in a realistic mode. So thank you, and I will be supporting this.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
Thank you, and thank you for all the speakers and the public comments today on Zoom and on live. Alex, thank you very much. Just a couple of comments. I think that what we did, or what you did today, was listen to the community and modified our plan as per the community's input. And that's certainly very important, and I commend you for that. I commend all city staff for that, because it is the community that drives us. And in this case, it's public safety. And that's completely, absolutely the best, one of our top priorities. You asked about the buffered bicycle design, so I do like the notion of having splits not in the same, I mean, on each side, not on the same lane. That, to me, that's not good, because then it places cars out in the middle of the street again. So let's stay away from that, because that's what's really the problem. The added suggestions are good. I like those. So please work on them if there's an opportunity. As far as listening to folks who don't live in Hayward, that's okay. We do have cyclists in the city of Hayward. So in my mind, we need to ensure that we keep working on our bicycle plan and our pedestrian plan, and whether advisors or consultants or folks, avid cyclists come over from other cities, it's okay. We can listen to their point of view. That's not a problem. Because it's the safety of our residents that's at most. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, staff, again, for all your hard work on this item. I know that, I believe it was in 2018 was the walking audit. Someone can correct me, but I was there as a resident, and I believe Councilmember Zermenio was there as well. He can confirm that or not, but there were residents that asked for safety improvements, pedestrian improvements, and there were a lot of people there. And even though they may not be on Facebook, they may not be on Twitter, they may not be in the locations where you hear their requests, there were people who were asking for more improvements because there was a lot of speeding that was happening on Patrick. I do feel that staff did try to address those concerns, and I don't think what was installed was necessarily radical. I just feel like this street may not be the location for this type of improvement, but maybe a modified improvement. I do like, as well as other council members, like the rumble strips. I was trying to think of that word, but Bruce, he got it out. But I was also thinking not just about these types of bumpers or buffers, but also if we can do some more lighting in where the reflective, if we can do that in the streets, something that will just keep the drivers at bay. And for the cyclists, there are cyclists in Hayward. I get a lot of calls and emails asking for more safer bike lanes. So I know other residents may not see them, but they are there. We do have that. And I think the bigger question we have to ask is, we could have more cyclists in Hayward if we had more amenities. And that's something that the city is working on, but that I do feel like we are heavily relying on our cars because we don't have enough amenities in Hayward. And so I do think we are getting there. So you will start to see more cyclists as more amenities continue to come to Hayward. The other thing we also have to realize is that we do have children that ride bikes to school in these areas. And there's also people with strollers that walk their kids to school in these areas. So we do have to think about other people who live in Hayward, not just people who drive cars. And then I also would ask the cyclists, thank you for cycling, first of all. Thank you for your contribution to protecting Mother Earth. However, I do feel like there are a lot of people who would love to cycle, but they can't. Their cars are their livelihood, not by choice, but by requirements of their jobs, or if they have kids, more than one kid, they actually could be doing their best by taking their car to BART. So I do feel like we need to also think about people who rely on their cars, not because it's a convenience, it's because they have to. And so I do feel for the residents who have lived this certain way of life for generations, and then all of a sudden this is a big shift. And I personally have seen some cars that look like something has happened to them. And I do feel for the residents who live here. So what I propose is if we can have a friendly amendment to have some more research, potential addition of rumble strips, reflective lighting to help with more of a barrier instead of just painted lines as buffers. With someone I'm not sure who made the item, but someone be.
So that was Councilmember Salinas. Are you, do you accept that amendment?
Anything for Councilmember Andrews.
All right, so, and Councilmember Zermania, you are the seconder. Do you accept that?
I also appreciate Councilmember Andrews, so yes.
Yes, and even if you didn't appreciate Councilmember Andrews, it was a good suggestion. So I think you did the right thing here by, accepting it. So
Thank you to my colleagues. That was all. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thanks a lot. And let's see, Councilmember Marquez is next.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo my appreciation to our community members. Really appreciate everyone's engagement. This has been a very long process. Really appreciate staff pivoting and taking the time to do the actual site visits at different times just to see the different impacts. It is a very, very busy street, and I could just speak for myself. Being one of the 3 members of the infrastructure committee, it's really important to us that we do implement the idea, the plan of the bike and pedestrian plan that we've adopted. This is a change, I fully acknowledge that, but this change is being done with the goal of keeping as many people's safety in mind. So that's the people, as was mentioned earlier, that live in the neighborhood, that bike, that walk, that push strollers, that are on public transportation, people utilizing Weeks Library, South Hayward Parish. Want to make sure that this street stays as safe as possible for as many people as possible. So I am completely comfortable with the recommendation of staff, as well as the updated modifications by Councilmember Andrews. Thank you to our community members for raising those good ideas. And just want to echo, I do appreciate Bike East Bay. I know you're representing an advocacy group, an organization that may not be housed in Hayward, but they have been instrumental in mobilizing Hayward residents to participate, as Councilmember Andrews mentioned, and staff the walk audit that was several years ago. I remember Susie was very instrumental in getting outreach efforts and people out. And I do know that there was a huge presence of monolingual Spanish speakers at that event. And it's what's unfortunate is people do feel if they come out and express their concerns, they don't think they should have to continue to do that. That should be documented and captured. And that is our responsibility to remember that those voices and that input. And I also appreciate the people that have called in the past, Bike East Bay. I could list probably 10 people that are Hayward residents that do bike. And the bottom line is we do have to create the infrastructure to encourage more people to bike. But as what was mentioned earlier, not everyone has that privilege to bike. You know, we appreciate what you're doing for the environment, but people have to rely on their vehicle to work. There's, you know, people that are in the landscaping business, plumbing, whatever, they need their equipment to get to and from. So we have to be mindful of that and just really appreciate everyone's level of involvement and staff for your hard work. So I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lamnon?
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, I want to add my appreciation to the community at large and also to Bike East Bay and our city staff who've been engaging all along in a really robust and meaningful way. And that was exceedingly well done. And I remember standing along Tennyson and the 880 with Councilmember Marquez when we had lost somebody at the crosswalk there, and seeing the process evolve. That walk audit that Councilmember Andrews and Marquez and one of the public commenters talked about with the residents. And so this process was not cavalier. It was absolutely community driven. And I remember being on council and acknowledging, this is bold, this is different, and how creative it was to say, look, when you're already, to leverage the existing, we just repaved it, we need to repaint it, let's seize this moment. And really applauded staff for that. And we passed it, and it was very uncomfortable, but it was, I mean, not for the community because it was a huge change. And all along the way to say, we're trying this, and now we're going to revisit it, and those conversations continued. And I know a lot of my colleagues were involved in those ongoing conversations. And so I just really appreciate the process and wanted to reflect that this was democracy at its best. This is how we work. And so going forward, you know, I am concerned about increasing speeds. I am concerned about decreasing bicycle safety. And so I appreciate the friendly amendment from Councilmember Andrews about exploring, is it bumps on the road? Is it rumble strip? What's the right thing? More lighting, for sure. You know, whether or not it makes sense to keep that slightly narrower lane, as one of the public commenters calls the 12 versus 11, or not. This has to come back to us one more time in terms of approving the final plan. Is that right?
We are basically going to bring the cost for implementation before you, but I just wanted to quickly mention that the width of the lane did not change.
Oh,
It was 12 feet in the beginning, and it is 12 feet right now.
Thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. Okay, yeah, it was the costing thing I was remembering is the last step. And so just to make sure that perhaps there's a, sorry, this is a question. Did the announcement about this meeting and the other meetings, were those bilingual as well? Do you know?
I believe so. I'll ask Charmin to clarify if that's not the case.
Okay.
Charmin?
All our postcards and postings for outreach in the past was all bilingual.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you. And Councilmember Marquez's point about our job is to hold on to what we've heard. And I think there was a lot that was done to do that. The last thing that I wanted to say was, well, one thing was just a note. It sounds like there'll be some need for enforcement, education. So maybe it's community safety officers or somebody out both now perhaps to deal with folks bicycling on the sidewalk, and maybe later as this change evolves and just helping people reorient. I know that happened when the change happened in the first place, so appreciate that. The last thought was just reflecting that we do improvements incrementally. It's how it works. We can't, you know, do all of the bike lanes, but we seize the moments when we can. And one of those is about updating the Tennyson Corridor Plan. And I know we've had, unfortunately, just in the last year, a number of fatalities still on Tennyson. So to our city manager, does it make sense to do a Tennyson Corridor update sometime in this fiscal year, perhaps?
Are you talking about the sort of all of the projects that we've been working on in the Tennyson corridor and just, you know, with the improvements and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, as a strategic, I mean, it was a strategic initiative and a lot of things have been done, but there's still some stuff
things.
that's
And then I think
kind of getting an update.
Yeah, we can think about that. I know we've incorporated a lot of those projects into the strategic roadmap. So we'll let us chat about how we do that, and you know, maybe, you know, we had committed, I know it's a little weird because we're just now coming back in person, but we did commit to doing a meeting in South Hayward. I don't know how that's going to really work, you know, this year, just because of the hybrid environment and the virtual environment. So, you know, usually that's a good time to present sort of those kinds of updates. So let me talk with staff a little bit about that, and we can figure out. We are, you know, doing the City Hall 2 meetings, and some of those have been held in South Hayward, so we have had an opportunity to talk about, you know, what's going on in South Hayward particularly. But let me think about how we update the council on Tennyson projects.
I appreciate that. And, you know, if that information's sort of already been gathered, then maybe it's just an informational report as well, just so we have a sense of, you know, these issues that are still on the Tennyson corridor and what kind of the plan is there. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I will be joining, it sounds like the rest of the council, in supporting the motion. And I appreciate as well the amendment by Councilmember Andrews. I just want to go back to and really correcting. We are not being told by anyone outside of Hayward what to do here. This has come from the community in a number of ways and has been in the works for a long time, that we understood that we needed to move from being a suburban California community that was built around the service of the automobile and change to something that is more accommodating of all the other modes of transportation that there are, and that we want to encourage people even more now to use, given the climate change crisis that we're in, the impact of greenhouse gases. And I just remind everyone that that transportation is the biggest contributor to our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions. And we've known for years now that we need to try to get people to change somewhat in their, in being overly dependent on the automobile. And the concept that is become a concept, at least in California, I know, of complete streets that serve all modes of transportation, not just automobiles. It's very hard for drivers to get used to that idea, I think. But people are going to have to. Now, when we talk about Patrick Avenue, I too applaud the staff for taking this initiative. First of all, it comes from our bike and ped master plan that we fairly recently completed after working on it for a long time. Bike East Bay is an advocate. Maybe, their leadership may not live in Hayward, but there are definitely people in Hayward that appreciate their advocacy for riding bicycles. And it hasn't been a safe place to ride bicycles, and still isn't on many streets, and we have a lot of work to do. This plan, yes, okay, we're looking at it now and saying it didn't quite work here. Part of the reason for that is the nature of Patrick itself, which is this, we don't have a lot of streets like that are such a hybrid of, some single-family homes that face out to it. Then there's, this big church, St. Bede's with its church and its school. There's the obviously the South Hayward Parish on the other side. There's the Weeks Park. I mean, this is a street with a lot of different things going on, and I think it was going to be a challenge under any circumstances. So I don't see that this was in any way wasted, because I think we found out where there might be problems with using this particular design for accommodating bicycles, but we still have to work on accommodating bicycles on this street. And while, yes, if you drive up and down the street today, at certain times, certainly it's clogged with autos and you don't see a lot of bicyclists, but it takes a while for people to feel safe, to feel that they can get on their bikes and ride on this street. And so I'm very comfortable with the changes that have been offered. I would like to see the, I guess they're calling it the cycle track, tried probably somewhere else where the street is not like Patrick, where you've got all this mixture. There are probably other streets in our city where that might work, and I would like to see that at some point. But it's going to take a long time, but we are implementing a lot of plans that we have been laying for quite a number of years in our most recent general plan, and now our complete streets. Our plan for complete streets and our new bike and ped master plan. We need safety for everybody, and I just urge everyone, and I'm one of them. I do drive now. I haven't ridden a bike. I haven't ridden a bike for several years after I fell off of my bike a few years ago. And I can't say that I was ever a rider all over the city, but I did use it some anyway. People who are my age or have mobility problems might not be out there riding bikes. If we are driving, though, we need to be cognizant of the people who are walking and biking on our streets or whatever, doing one of these new things like scootering or whatever, all these things are out there now. And we should be grateful to them because they are helping us with our emissions problem. They're helping save the planet. And, you know, even those of us who are driving cars are moving to less gasoline, less polluting cars, but it's going to take a lot of effort, and this is part of it, and I am proud of the city. This experiment, it was worth making so that we saw, you know, it didn't quite work out in every way we had hoped, but we're revising it, so hopefully this new design will work for people. And I think we all appreciated all the community comments we've been getting, and so let's go forward, and I'll ask the city clerk now to do a roll call vote on the motion that was made to support the staff recommendation made by Councilmember Salinas, seconded by Councilmember Zermeño, and who both accepted the amendment offered by Councilmember Andrews to add in those good ideas that were suggested this evening, I think, from some of the community members about the I think they refer to them as the rumble stick thing, you know, to create more of a noticeable barrier. And the other one was lighting. A member of the public brought that up, and it would be a very good idea to, you know, to do that. And I think Councilmember Andrews was saying just a little more research and thought into how we can make that barrier more of a, you know, recognizable to automobile. So with that, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Zermeño.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Halliday.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the motion carries with 7 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I also want to express my thanks and appreciation to Assistant City Manager Jennifer Ott for close participation in this project, attending all the community meetings, and providing guidance to myself and the members of my team. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to council reports, comments, announcements. And let's see, I'm sure we must have some. Councilmember Zermeño, is that your hand up?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, if I see anyone out in TV land, this Friday's 11th Annual Mariachi Festival, please, no kisses or hugs. Wear your face mask, stay a little bit away from others, and enjoy the music. It should be a very good show, and it's free. And we thank the city, and we thank all the folks who are who will be there and actually help. I did invite President Biden, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it. So hopefully we'll see you Friday. Thank you.
He'd probably have a better time attending that than being in Washington where all that fighting is going on at Congress, but, you know, maybe he'll show up. Would you just, again, say it's this Friday night? Is that correct?
The what?
This Friday night is the
This Friday, we start at 5:15 with Aztec ceremony, and then at 5:30, 15 minutes of ballet folklorico, and then at 6 o'clock, we have the mariachi.
Oh, okay,
Taco
that
eating
sounds great.
contest, and also wear your sarape for a sarape contest, and your rebozo for a rebozo contest. And I'll come up with a nice prize for you, for the winner, anyway.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to let everyone know we have a Keep Hayward Clean and Green event October 23rd at Weeks Park. So please attend. It will be from 8 a.m. to noon. So we'll be cleaning up in that area.
Okay, thank you. And let me see, anybody else?
Mayor, I have
Councilmember
a quick-
Marquez, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank everyone who helped put on, or who is going to put on the Mariachi Festival. I really appreciate, I know Councilmember Armenio has been instrumental in that. Just encourage everyone to be safe. Please wear your mask, keep a safe distance. I'm sure there's going to be a large crowd, and just wanted to share that I will just be stopping by briefly because I have a prior commitment that night. I'm actually going to be going on a ride along with our police department. So hope everyone has a good night that evening. And then also wanted to tell the community about an upcoming event. I believe it's on Saturday, October 30th. It's Meet Kirby at our Heritage Plaza. I apologize, but I can't seem to locate the flyer with the time, but I'm sure it'll be on our Haystack newsletter or on our City of Hayward calendar. But it's an opportunity to meet our bookmobile that is going to be launching this month through the Hayward Library. So hope to see all of you there on Saturday, October 30th. I believe the start time is 11, but I apologize.
That's correct, Councilmember.
Our city manager, I think, is going to.
Thank you.
11 a.m., that's correct.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So don't see any others. I'll just say that I want to congratulate all of the Hearts of Hayward who were honored a week ago at the virtual first ever and hopefully last ever virtual volunteer recognition event that has changed a lot since we used to have it at the Big Ten at St. Rose. But, and especially all of the Hearts of Hayward nominated by the many wonderful nonprofits that we have working in our city. And then the 4 sort of special award winners. My award went to the Hayward Rotary Club, Supervisor Valle, who co-sponsors this event with the city. His award went to our fire chief, Garrett Contreras, for all the work he has done, especially in the area of health during this COVID pandemic. And then Arlene Naring, Reverend Arlene Naring, a wonderful pastor in our community who has done a lot of great work, got the John Pappas Humanitarian Award. And our former mayor, Michael Sweeney, was honored with the Gail Steele Lifetime Achievement Award. And we also had some special recognition for Gail Steele, who sadly passed away about a little more than a year ago now, and who was so instrumental in founding and continuing this volunteer recognition. And also Marshall Mitzman, who was a member of the committee, also served on the Chabot Las Positas Board of Trustees, and we honored him as well as he passed away during the pandemic. And then I just wanted to compliment staff on the development of the City Hall to You project that's been going on. And we've been having the Thursday evening meetings and then also the Saturday morning pop-ups at local parks. And I've been stopping by on those and having just some great conversations with people who are there. Last week's was at the Mia's Dream Park on Tennyson, and it was really just wonderful to see all of the families out enjoying that playground. And this Saturday morning, I guess on Thursday at 6, we'll have the virtual Zoom meeting. And this one is regarding the Mount Eden. I guess that's the southwest area of the city. And the pop-up on Saturday morning will be at Mount Eden Park. That's there at Tennyson and Hesperian. So hope to see you out for that too. And so with that, and with not seeing any other requests from council to speak, I think that this meeting has come to its conclusion. And with that, until next Tuesday night at 7 p.m., when I think the meeting went a lot smoother tonight than it did last week. I don't think we got any complaints about people not being able to hear on the so we'll be back here trying it again next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And until then, we're adjourned.